Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Stephanie Willis, and I am the founder of FundReady. I help nonprofits become grant ready from the inside out, and I do this through strategic planning, through organizational capacity building, and bridging that with the inner work that helps make this all stick. To that point, I'm also the author of Reboot, Organizational Transformation for Nonprofits, and today I'm going to be covering 10 things that kill your funding proposal. So, one of the things that's really important to know is that your proposal or your propensity to win a grant, it starts before you begin that proposal application, before you begin to develop um, your grant writing proposal or hire a grant writer, whatever it is that you're going to do to get yourself in the running for that grant. It's not just about the writing side of it. It is about the readiness. The funder is looking to see, are you actually ready to be funded? Are you ready to receive? And more importantly, are you ready to steward the funds that you're asking for? So the question becomes, what does your proposal say about your readiness? Since that is what they're looking for. Are you clear on who you are as an organization? That starts with the leadership and that flows all the way through the programs. Who are we? Are you able to articulate that clearly? Who you are, what you do, who you're here for, what your mission is, what drives you, um, who do you serve, how do you serve them, how many people do you serve, and what is the impact? So that's all a part of the clarity around who you are. That's going to be your overarching narrative, your greater story. Do you know your numbers? Your numbers are about you've got the budget numbers. So when you look at the programs and you look at what your needs are in alignment with the programs that you're offering, does the budget align with the program need? And they're really looking to see, are you going to be able to steward the finances that you're asking for, not just theirs, but are you a good steward of all of the finances in the nonprofit? So that's part of the knowing your numbers. Then there's the key performance indicators, so your KPI numbers that let your organization know, not just the funders, but your organization know how you're performing. So when you set goals for how many people you're going to impact, how many meals you're going to deliver, or how many students you're going to train, or how many families you're going to get off the street, whatever that is for you, they're looking at, you've got to be able to set some goals and you've got to have a plan of action, a set of processes that you execute to make sure that you accomplish those goals. And then you should have some kind of evaluation that lets you know how you're performing, whether you're meeting the target, you're underperforming, or you're exceeding your goals. So there's something that shows proof of how you're doing with your programs, and that would include the funding that has been invested in those programs. It's by nature, it's evaluating the overall performance of everything. So, what the funders are looking for is some reporting, some kind of evidence that you are tracking and reporting on a regular basis your impact. And then there's the systems that show it. So, your systems, part of your systems are going to be, what are you using to track the information? What are you using to track the data? What are you using to track your performance, your demographic, what is, maybe you've got a system where that you use for intake, right? Some people do things by hand still and then enter it into a database, but that database would be the system that shows that you're tracking. So whatever you are utilizing, I think when you lay out a map of business processes, you're going to identify the process, but you're going to identify the tool that you use to execute the process, or to the tool that you're using to support the process. So that's an example of systems that show it. And then they're looking to see, are you ready to steward the finances or the funds that they're going to be investing? And that story is told already by everything else in your proposal. It's going to demonstrate that you're making good use of your resources, and not just your financial resources, but your human capital, your tangible or material resources, when you're tracking everything closely, then you're demonstrating that you have the capability um, to steward everything that you hold and everything that the organization is going to take in. So when you think about the proposal, when you're sending that proposal over to a funder, they're reading what you've written, they're reading what you've omitted, they're reading into how it's like a day in the life of your foundation or of your organization, and they're able to see a little bit into how things operate, how things flow, and they can see that if you've captured it. If you haven't captured that, then they just as well will assume that it doesn't exist. So the first thing we'll look at is misalignment with funder priorities. I made this one number one because it really is one of the things that funders have spoken about, especially in the article from the Chronicle of Philanthropy. I mentioned that article in my first video where funders felt like only one in every four nonprofit really understood who they are. And that speaks volumes because that aligns with this number one in the top 10. They feel like the the foundation or the organization that's seeking funding from them doesn't understand who they are, what they do, what their priorities are, what's near and dear to their heart. And so then the applicant just looks like an applicant that's coming to them for money. They're not looking for alignment when the funder is definitely looking for alignment. It is necessary that um, the applicant understands what the funder is able to fund. So the first kill factor in the proposal being rejected, that would be number one, because if you're already misaligned, there's no reason for that funder to go forward. So there's also no reason for you as an organization to, waste time applying for a grant from a foundation or a corporation if what you're asking for, what you're doing in your community is not in alignment with what they're seeking to invest in or to partner with. They look at it as a partnership. Maybe that's the better way to say it. They're looking at all of those who organizations that are that can be an extension of their own business or corporation or institution. So that might make more sense. They're looking for you or their partners to be an extension of what they care about. So number two, when we look at the number two item or thing that gets your proposal rejected, it will be a weak organizational identity. And just like number one, the question becomes, what does your proposal say about your readiness? What does your proposal say about your ability to steward? Are you a good steward? Does it show a history of positive stewardship? So it isn't just about showing who you are as a leader of the organization, showing who's running the place and what skills they have and what their background is. That's all well and good, and that should be on your website. But when you look at your mission, the clarity of your mission, when you look at the program design, when you look at the overall governance, the structure of that governance, which includes your board, and like I just mentioned, the skill set of your board, the participation of the board, and all of those things, we'll call that organizational structure. When you look at the HR plan, who else do you have hired in your organization? Who else is driving the seat or driving the bus? When you look at the budget decisions, the programs and how they align with the budget, because the budget just doesn't just cover the programs. There's all kinds of overhead. There's all kinds of expenses that should be rolled up into that budget. Are all of the expenses accounted for? And then there's the impact narrative. When you look at all of those things, those details tell the funder who you are. It tells the funder how you lead, and it tells the funder whether you can be trusted to steward their investment. Because you have to remember, the money that they gift organizations with is an investment. It's not a gift. It's not one of those things where they say, here's a gift. We applaud what you do and we want to give you some money for it. No, they are investing in your cause. They're investing in your outcomes. Therefore, they are investing in you as a leader or as a leadership team. So when any of those sections that I just mentioned are underdeveloped in the proposal, then the entire proposal package suffers, from the executive summary all the way, through to the full proposal. It suffers because it shows that you're not ready. So, grant readiness and funding readiness isn't just about, do you have the paperwork that you need? Do you have the documentation that you need to receive funds or to be selected? But are you ready? Can you demonstrate that can you demonstrate evidence of readiness? What I want you to do is remember this. There's a leadership assessment that you'll have access to at the end of this presentation or at the end of this video. Just scan the QR code and you'll be able to just, with yourself, by yourself, and for yourself, take the assessment to see where you stand as a leader and where your organization stands as it relates to leadership and stewardship, because leadership is really the most important thing here for the funders. The third thing is unclear mission. Your mission statement is your North Star. It really is. It tells it tells the funder, of course, the organization too. It is the North Star for your organization, but it shows the funder who you are and what you do and who you serve. It's very important that your mission statement, as simple as it is very clear. I think one of the challenges that nonprofits face when they're in funding cycles of funding crises, when they're in financial distress, is they start to kind of stray away from the mission, because the focus then becomes, we have got to get the money in the door so that we can stay open. So often there'll be mission drift, and that can show up in the proposal as well. It's not as straightforward in the proposal, but if the finances or the financials are off in the proposal, then mission drift will be evident as you move through a proposal from the beginning to the end. If there's not coherence, then the reader, the audience, is going to notice the subtle differences in what you're aiming at, and that would be a type of mission drift. So, evidence of community need. Data is very important to a funder. It's important to your organization, your operations. There needs to be evidence that your community needs the product or service or training that you offer. So your data plus your story integration is going to give the funders the evidence that whatever it is that you offer your community, there's a great need for it. It's also going to show up in your impact statement, in all of your in your theory of change, and your, in some ways, your logic model, but definitely the theory of change, because you're saying, because of this work that we do, whatever that work is, this population of people experience this change. So it's very explicit. It's not implied. It's laid out and detailed, right? And so this is what they're always looking for. Data is a very beneficial tool when you're making a request or you're making a case for anything, especially funding. So the data is going to back that up. That's your evidence of community need. That might be surveys, that whatever it is, regardless of where you are in your program or where you are as an organization, how long you've been in operations, that data is always going to be necessary. That uh, data sets where you have surveyed your group, your potential group, your existing group, having that regular data collection as an ongoing process is highly important at every stage in your nonprofit organization. Having a weak program design, this is number 5. So a weak program design, that's your gap between good intentions, what you intend to happen, and provable results. If you so you're wanting to get from A to Z, but if your program design doesn't show and demonstrate how you get there, then the funder is going to have a hard time understanding what they're funding, right? Um, the program design is actually what your budget is going to be tuned into or aligned with. Again, they need to see what is it that we're funding. What do you need the funds for? Your program design is what I call the belly of the fish. I have a workshop that I call the Core 4 or the 28-day sprint. And that workshop is for nonprofits who need assistance either developing or strengthening the program design. Like I said, the the design of your programs kind of, to me, determine whether you're fundable or not. Because even though they're funding outcomes and they're investing in the leadership, they are funding the programs. So you want to make sure you've defined the activities clearly, what you do, how you do it, how you evaluate it, um, who's leading it, who's running it, because you've got to pay those who run it. All the things that go into the program design, they're going to be looking for that because that's important for the financing side of your proposal. Theory of change, I mentioned that. If you don't have a theory of change at all, most funders, I would say mostly institutional funders, when you're getting a government from the state, when you're getting a grant, I think I said government, when you're getting a grant from the state or the federal government, um, or some other organization that falls underneath those institutions, then they're usually looking for a theory of change. And if you don't have one, then that can get your proposal rejected because they're looking at replicable proposals, right? Not that you're replicating your proposal after someone else, but they usually give you a blueprint, a prototype, a template for how they would like to see your proposal and what they would like to have in it so that they can compare across the board. One of the things that I don't think that nonprofits realize is that these funders have hundreds of proposals to go through. So if they've got 400, 300, even 200 proposals, they don't have time to read every proposal and try to um, understand it in the language of the writer. They need that template so they can move through those proposals quickly because they have to determine who's going to be funded and who isn't. So it's almost they have to compare them all one against the other. Maybe they score them in some kind of way. So if you don't align with the original request of how they want to see the proposal, then you're going to get rejected. And usually, like I said, a theory of change is one of those requirements that they seek. One of the things that they're asking to be in the proposal. The other thing, which aligns with it, is the logic model. They are also looking for that. The same funding entities are usually looking for a logic model. The logic model is sort of like a business process. If you're familiar with that, that's the operational roadmap that gets you from point A to point B. You've got to map every activity. You've got your goals, you've got your outcomes, and you have activities, right? You have intent. I'm going to call the goals for the sake of a project intent or outcomes. Well, you have activities underneath those goals or intentions that lead to that specific outcome. So the logic model is going to show it is a map of how do we get from point A to point B. It's a visual of your program at a high level, so they don't have to, if they see your logic model and they see your theory of change, that actually gives them the visual representation of what your programs actually do. And maybe that saves them a little bit of reading. Who knows? If it's well done, they might look at that and say, all right, they've got it. Others may definitely read into the details. I guess it depends on who's looking at it. I've been on the side of reviewing proposals, and in my case and in my experience, there was a panel. There was at least 8 of us leaders who sat around, the round table in the conference room, and we reviewed each of the proposals. And it's a time-consuming task. It's a huge undertaking, which is the reason why funders generally ask to see proposals in a specific way so they get accustomed to how the information is going to be presented to them. So the other thing that's very important is the evaluation plan. If you don't have an evaluation plan, a method or process for evaluating and measuring the outcomes, then you have no proof, because that's where your data lies. This is where, proof of concept shows up. This is where you demonstrate your impact even beyond the concept. This is where you show the impact that you're having in the community already before they invest dollars into your programs or into your organization. So they get a sense of security around how their dollars are going to be used. This is where you need to define your KPIs or your key performance indicators. These are your measurements, the measurements of performance. How do we know that we're doing well? How do we know that we are achieving our goals? How do we know when we're underperforming, right? You've got to have some type of measurement in place and some mechanism to evaluate your performance, and then also develop reports. I would say, if possible, if you're using systems today, we've got so much technology that's available to assist us. So you could have daily reports, you could have weekly reports, you should always have monthly reports, and you should always have annual reports. So that is going to coalesce with the evaluation plan. The other thing that can get your proposal rejected is a misaligned budget. As you see here, it says Core 3. This is part of my Core 4 workshop. One of the things that we really, really lean into when we look at the programs, when we develop your programs, is the budget, to make sure that every dollar is mapped to an activity. And your budget is your overall narrative expressed in numbers. In a sense, if the numbers don't match, that means, when I say narrative, when you're asking for whatever you're asking for, say you're asking for $2.6 million, well, that budget needs to align with your expenses, right? Your programs, but your overall expenses. You need to be able to draw a line from your request for funding to whatever it is you're asking to be funded. If those numbers do not match, that confuses the funder. They don't have trust in your ability to steward. They don't have trust in your ability to evaluate your programs, the data, and the finances. And so they don't have trust that that investment is going to make the impact that they would like it to make, because there's no way to tell. And then the last one here is lack of funding diversity. This is very important. Sustainability is extremely important to funders. They don't want to believe or to feel that the money that you're asking them for is going to make or break your organization or your programs, your services, your operations. You cannot be dependent on one source. And they want to see that you aren't. Because if you aren't able to demonstrate that there's other sources of funding for your organization, for your programs, for your community, then that's a red flag, and it's gonna make your proposal, your request seem like a risk to this funder, or I'm gonna call them investors, because they are. They are investing in sustainable organizations. They're not investing their dollars or giving their dollars to an organization that's falling apart, because that demonstrates you haven't been stewarding over the finances and the resources that you have had, or you fail to plan well for the funding that you would need for your operations to flourish. So when we look at funding diversity for small community serving organizations or nonprofits, they are looking for finances to come in, for example, from individual donors, small, recurring, regular community believers, or recipients of some service that you do charge for. That could be training, it could be workshops, it could be maybe you sell some kind of services that your community group provides. I don't know what that looks like for you because I don't know, what you offer and to whom, but I'm just giving you some ideas what in whatever other ways that you can generate recurring income for your organization. That's going to be a positive, a win for the funders when they see that. There's a lot of organizations have a page on their website where they receive donations from people who believe in what they do in the community. They set up email lists. They have a story there on the website. Maybe they send out a newsletter. Some of my favorite organizations, like I follow this, they're far away in Africa, but I follow this organization called Herd, and I just absolutely love what they do. And what this actually is good for you. They video their operations, like their daily happenings. They capture snippets on video. They rescue elephants, so you're always going to get a video of a rescue. Um, I don't know how often they put those out, but I know a watcher, as a member of their audience, I look forward to those videos because those videos give me good feels. They're just happy vibes, and they bring me a lot of joy to see, what how these groups, how this group in Africa looks after its wildlife. It is just phenomenal. What that also does, though, is that it shows the all for all of the members of their community who invest in what they do. We get to see exactly where our dollars go, and I think that is just super amazing. And we get to be a part of the story. We get to be a part of the happenings, and any nonprofit organization can use that that style to share what they do with the world, whatever that is. So whatever you do, you can build a storyline and invite the community at large to just be a part of the story and engage that way. So that generates um, donations because the audience are really buying into, I don't want to use that word like they're being sold or manipulated, but they're really connecting with the work that Herd does. And so Herd has a partner site so one site gives you insight into what they do out in the bush, like the rescues. The other site, the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, I think it's something like that. Um, what they do is they show you a day in the life, like all around the land and the interactions with all the carers and the elephants. And so I know I'm going on and on about this, but it because it brings me joy, and I would want for people to feel that kind of joy about all of your organizations, whatever it is that you're doing, however you're impacting your communities, whoever they are, even if it's a community of pets, a community of wildlife, whatever it is. um, Inviting people in to what you do, giving them a chance to see how, boots on the ground, what that looks like. That's a win-win for you because that's a pathway for donations that really doesn't cost much. It does cost some time. You've got to invest some time in that, but maybe that's the work that your volunteers can do, but that is a pathway. And funders like to see that you have multiple pathways for income coming into your organization to fund your operations. So, what I can tell you though is that FundReady helps to build the story. It helps you to build all of the infrastructure that makes all of these things possible. The other type of funding that you can bring in is corporate sponsorships, because companies have community investment budgets. Just like the grant process, there's they set aside monies. This gives them tax breaks and things of that nature, but they set aside funding, and then they identify the priorities. These are the priorities we fund. It could be education, it could be medicine, it could be some a lot of companies like to align with organizations that are fighting cancer, or fighting different types of diseases, those long term diseases that people are challenged with, or inequalities in education for certain people groups, or um, food insecurity or poverty, or things along those lines. Inequalities with gender groups, or I'm trying to think of some of the things. If you look at the United Nations SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, that is a good place to start understanding what companies are looking for when they say, do you align with our funding priorities? If you just get familiar with that, go to that website, that's going to help you out immensely, because then you start to think like a funder, right? And so FundReady helps you to build that alignment case. It's not extra. It's not an extra part of what we do. It is a part of what we do to help you with capacity building and to become fundable all the time, not just when a grant opportunity shows up. The other thing that they're looking at is, as far as grants are concerned, 30 to 40% max of your total incoming revenue should be kind of held down by grants. I'm not saying that it should be that. If you can do less, then great. They're not looking for an organization. They're not looking to invest in an organization that is leaning too heavily on grants. So once you get upwards 40% and beyond, so let's just say even 35%, I think 30% is a good number to stay within. 30% of our income we are looking to grant for. That that it's good to lean on other income structures, because they're looking at sustainability, and grants are not promised. Now, if you can get aligned with an organization where they're giving to if you're aligned with a foundation, or like a legacy foundation or something along those lines, even a corporation that can commit to investing a certain number of grant dollars for the next 1, 2 to 3 years. Of course, 1 year, we're always looking at what they can do now. But if you can get a 2 or 3 year commitment, then that's going to go a long way as well to, funding attracts funding. So if they can see that investments and funds are coming in, that's a safer, lower risk investment opportunity for them. And of course, investment doesn't mean they're getting something out of it, not something tangible, not finances and dollars, but they're investing in your impact. That is what um, they want to be a part of. So the other, I already mentioned, you know, workshops and training as an opportunity for earning income for your organization, but workshops that gives some kind of certification. If you develop resource guides and ebooks, if you are able to share your knowledge as a product, which is what I'm doing here, and you can sell that as a service or a product and service, and that is uh, a way to demonstrate income, sustainability for your organization. And there's also fiscal partnership or fiscal sponsorship, partnering with a larger organization that you can receive funds through. That is very helpful for much smaller nonprofits, or nonprofits that haven't quite completed their nonprofit, application status. So maybe you haven't yet been assigned legitimate 501c3 status. then fiscal sponsorship partnering is a way to go. You don't want to stay under that umbrella for the long haul, but if you need to start there, it's helpful as well. That builds credibility also for those other potential funders who are going to invest in your organization. And then there's planned giving. And I did talk about that, I think, briefly when I talked about legacy giving. Planned giving is the long game. You've got community believers who, well, they're community believers, but it's more like the legacy giving, where there's a family or what have you that believes in your organization and wants to include your organization in their estate. So that, a lot of times when people who are wealthy pass away, because I may not be explaining it very well, people that are wealthy, when they pass away, they give a lump sum of their money to an organization that they believe in. And I think the beauty in this here is that also speaks to relationship building, which I also talked about a little bit in my first video when I said your funding problem isn't about funding. Building relationships with foundations, with um, families. I'm not sure how they do the whole legacy piece, like who you build that relationship with, but I'll just say building relationships across the board and being seen out there, especially, being a part of Candid. I don't think they've changed their name, but being a part of the website Candid and other websites like it, where it's a reputable website, and you putting your nonprofit there is a game changer for your nonprofit's reputation. So any of the sites that are like Candid that um, demonstrate credibility for your organization, that's a place where funders go to seek organizations to invest in, to give money to. So look at some of those different platforms that you can put your organization on so that you can be discovered, so they can see what you do. It's kind of like a marketing tool in a sense, and get out there, via YouTube or whatever, create a channel, create some kind of ongoing social media content that lets your audience be a part of your story. So that's the top 10 things that keep your proposal from becoming funded. Now, here, this is an opportunity for you. You can do a grant readiness assessment to see where you are as an organization in your funding readiness. It's comprehensive, but it's fast, right? You're just looking at what have we done already? Where do we stand with our readiness, our overall fundability? And then it's going to help you take a look at where you could improve on your capacity, because we're about grant readiness, but also capacity building, and it goes together. It's not separate one from the other. The other link here you see is for the leadership assessment, which is going to allow you to assess yourself as a leader. It's just going to give you some pointers. It'll give you a summary, an evaluation of your own assessment, and give you a summary of how you lead and where you could develop yourself more, so that the funders are seeing you as a capable leader who can steward those dollars that they so want to invest, that they really want to give to an organization that's making huge impacts in the community. So there's also going to be a link in the evaluation results to my book, Reboot: Organizational Transformation for Nonprofits. And that is for nonprofit leaders that are ready for transformation. And that is going to be an opportunity for you to transform yourself, to transform your board, your team, and your entire operations if you so choose. And all of that, of those opportunities, are in the one book. So you can get that book on Amazon. You can scan the QR code for that. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of the FundReady ecosystem, and for allowing me to be a part of your story and to help you get to that place where you are self-sufficient in your funding journey, where you are feel very capable, so that you've got the capacity built into your organization. You don't have to go outside of your organization and hire people to come in for temporary support. You build that support into your organization so it's always in-house, no matter what size your organization. If you're a one-woman show, a one-man show, if you've got a team of 3 or a team of 20, whatever that looks like, FundReady is able to expand and contract to meet you and your organization wherever you are. Again, my name is Stephanie Willis. I am the founder and the creator of all of the FundReady tools. I have a Fortune 500 background. I've been in this landscape for more than 20 years. And because I've worked in those organizations, I know the language that funders speak, right? I'm able to assist nonprofit organizations with speaking the language of the funder so that we open those doors for the funding to come in, to power your operations, and to maximize your impact. I do hope to see you in one of my workshops really, really soon. And thank you.